Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and we're continuing on with a great series that's being offered to the community. It's called the COHO series, and it's a lecture series dealing with life and death and living well until you die, and all the issues that surround that, and to make sure that you are properly prepared for that, your family is, and it really is a remarkable service. And it'll be a lecture series that's held on this coming Thursday twice. The same thing is repeated, so you can get it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's free at the Smullen Center there, across the parking lot at Rogue Valley Medical Center, or again in the evening at 7 o'clock. Delighted to have with us Dr. Paul Rostykus with us, and we're going to be talking to him about emergency services and some other things. Doctor, nice to have you. And you've been involved in this for quite some time, haven't you? In emergency services. How many years?
Better than 20 years. I've kind of lost track of exactly how long it is, but as the EMS medical director here in the county.
Well, thank you for your service for all those years. Let's talk about 911, because a lot of people dial it for frivolous things, but when should somebody call 911?
Well, you call 911. It's the emergency. Technically, it's called the Public Service Answering Point. PSAP is one of the many names for it, but 911 is the number in the United States. And it's the number for getting emergency services when you need something right now. Okay. So, you know, the typical we think about is fire, law enforcement, EMS, medical care.
Okay. And a lot of times people, when they call, they're somewhat in a panic mode, but they are looking for some specific information, right, to get the situation under control.
Right, and actually the operators, the 911 operators are very well trained to work on getting that information. They will need to know the location and finding out the nature of the emergency. You know, is it a medical issue? Is it someone who is not breathing? Is it a fire going on? And then they can figure out which direction they need to head in terms of who they send there, and they will then continue to ask some questions.
So when somebody calls 911, what happens? What happens? What does that generate in the way of action?
So, like I said, the 911 operator then will ask, what's going on, and so we're talking about EMS medical, and the first questions will be, what is your location and what is the nature of your emergency, and then they will ask, is the person breathing, is the person conscious, and that'll sort of, if they're not conscious, if they're not breathing, that's going to result in a higher level response of who goes, as opposed to, well, Grandma's been sick for a couple weeks. We'll still get a response, but it just depends on who we send and how many and how quickly.
Normally when you call 911, let's say it's a medical emergency, you'll see an ambulance and a fire unit. Who calls the shots at that point? Who's in control of the situation?
Well, we have what's called a two-tiered system here in Jackson County, or in most of Jackson County. We have what's called a first responder, and that's usually the fire department, and they are a non-transporting unit. They are there. There tend to be more of them around. They will often arrive first on scene, particularly in the further out areas of the county. We then have the ambulance or transporting agencies, and there are 3 of those in the county, and they will be there, and they will actually assume control of the patient, because they're the ones who are going to make the decision about taking the patient to the hospital or not.
Okay.
So first responding is to get there quickest, particularly if you're somebody who needs something immediately, and then the ambulance is there for additional level of care and transporting the patient to the hospital.
And I think people need to understand that the ambulance services are private, so when they show up, it's a difference. It's not as if it's the fire department showing up.
Well, it actually gets more confusing than that, because we have 3 ambulance. The county is divided up into what's called ambulance service areas, or ASA in the lingo. There's 3 of them. Mercy Flights, which is, you're right, a private company, kind of covers most of the county, the big swath across the middle of it. Ashland Fire and Rescue provides the ambulance service down in the southeast part of the county, and Rogue River Fire Department provides the ambulance service up towards Josephine County, near Grants Pass.
Okay. All right, let's move over to where actually somebody dies in the home, because sometimes that occurs and it's expected or it's not expected. But let's say somebody passes away at the home. What happens then when the emergency services, they call 911, they respond there, and the patient's deceased? What happens?
Well, first of all, it will be determining, is the patient truly dead? Sometimes that's very clear, some that isn't. And so that usually generates a medical response initially. And if the person is dead and there is nothing else to be done, then it gets turned over to law enforcement, which is the medical examiner that has to say, is there anything suspicious about this? And then the patient, a funeral home will be involved in terms of taking care of the body. Now, if a patient is already, death is expected, particularly if someone is in the hospice program, then the first step is actually to call hospice. Okay, and call hospice, and then, because we already know that the patient is going to be dying, and hospice will then proceed, and we typically do not generate a medical response in that time.
So when does a medical examiner get involved when somebody has died?
There's a list, but basically a medical examiner is involved if the death is unexpected, if it's under unusual circumstances, if it's an on-the-job injury, if you're concerned about suicide or a homicide going on, if there are suspicious circumstances, if it's sort of out of the blue with no reason, then they will. And they'll review some records and make that determination on how much further investigation they need to do.
All right, so who can legally pronounce somebody dead?
Medical personnel will do that, and the EMS personnel do have a set of criteria. I think law enforcement can do it as well if there are some things that are fairly obvious. If somebody has rigor mortis, if somebody has been decapitated, cold outside, there's a few circumstances, but typically it is a medical personnel, so it's frequently the EMS folks.
All right, and at that point, if somebody has died in the home, then they normally would not be transported by an ambulance.
No, if they're died at home and resuscitation is not going to be carried out, which is one of the things we sometimes do in certain circumstances, then they're not. If they are going, if we have what's a cardiac arrest where we think we can recover somebody, then the ambulance will be involved. But I think we're talking here about the end of life sort of expected ones.
Right. And I realize we have to deal with these things to be straight up about it because it does happen every day. Is it a POLST? What is that?
POLST is a physician orders for life-sustaining treatment, and that's basically, it's a pink salmon-colored piece of paper. Actually, Oregon was one of the first states that designed this POLST program, and it's for folks who aren't necessarily in hospice, but clearly have made decisions on what they want to do or don't want to have done towards the end of their life. So POLST is typically used for somebody who's getting on in the years and often who has some underlying medical conditions, heart disease, lung disease, that they're ongoing, they're not going to be recovered from those diseases, they may be controlled, and this gives some instructions on what to do should somebody die. Okay,
and those usually posted on the refrigerator, so to speak?
Yeah, they're it's supposed to be somewhere obvious, right?
And that indicates that all these decisions have been made, and here's what you do.
Right, and the part of that is there's a couple different parts of it, but the most important one for EMS personnel at the time of a 911 call is to
resuscitate or not to resuscitate.
Right, to do resuscitation or not. DNR or DNA or do not attempt resuscitation. That's really the most important one, and if EMS arrives and someone has a valid POLST form that says DNR, then they will not institute resuscitation measures. If there is no POLST there, then they automatically will begin resuscitation.
Wow. Okay, and that's the criteria, because I've often wondered who makes that call. Even though they may have an order on that orange form, who makes the call whether to do it or not?
It's the EMS providers, because they're the ones. Again, we talked about in the beginning a 911 call. Somebody either isn't breathing or dead, and they go there, and if there is no POLST form or it says do everything, then they are going to attempt to resuscitate the person and transport them to the hospital as appropriate.
Okay, now you're going to be lecturing this Thursday. What's your topic and what are you going to be dealing with?
Basically what you've talked about here, obviously in more detail than this, but talking about the 911, it's 911 and end of life. When to call, when to not call, also interactions with hospice as well. So, talk about some about the 911 system, a little more details than we have, how it works, how it's set up. The POLST form and how EMS interacts with the POLST form that way. There is also another gentleman, Nick Hrabowski, I think is the last name, who's going to talk a little bit more about the funeral. He's been in the funeral industry, and so he's going to talk a little bit about that end of it as well.
Well, let me encourage you, this is a free service. It'll be happening this Thursday at the Smullen Center, which is right across the parking lot from Rogue Valley Medical Center. It's a beautiful facility and venue. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if that's more convenient for you. If not, then they repeat the entire seminar at 7 o'clock in the evening. And let me encourage you to take advantage of this. This is absolutely a great service. So, Doctor, thanks for coming in. I think it's something we need to talk about. It's part of life. We need to be prepared for these things. And I just want to say in closing, what can you say to somebody who's struggling whether or not they should get involved with hospice? Because I just think I've been too close to realize how wonderful the service is.
Well, I think the thing to do is to consider it early on, not waiting until sort of the very last minutes, but when it's clear that this is kind of
the road you're going to be on.
This is the road's going to be on. Then it's worth talking with your physician, your practitioner, and looking into hospice as an option for additional care.
Okay. Dr. Rostykus, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Well, as you know, for well over 10 years, we've been involved with Operation Christmas Child, which is a wonderful program put on by Samaritan's Purse and headed up by Franklin Graham, where we all get together during the holidays and we put together these beautiful little shoe boxes for various ages of children, boys and girls, and they are shipped to countries all over the world. Well, earlier this week, we had the chance to have Nhung Hurst with us, and she's Operation Christmas Child's Northwest Regional Manager. She oversees a big part of the United States on Operation Christmas Child. Well, she came to theDove for a very special presentation, so join us now as we talk to Nhung. Well, this is a very special day because today we have all of the significant people behind Operation Christmas Child in the studio with us, and I am so delighted to have with us today. First of all, we have Nhung Hurst, and you are the Northwest Regional Coordinator, right?
Regional Manager with Operation.
Regional Manager,
yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Operation Christmas Child, and you're down from where? Portland?
We are located actually in Tacoma, Washington.
Tacoma.
Yes.
Right,
and
nice.
the office oversees the entire Northwest, which includes the states of Alaska, Montana,
Wow.
Idaho, Washington, and Oregon.
You're all over the place.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We actually boast, although we know we're not supposed to boast in anything but Jesus Christ, but we do boast the largest landmass of any other Operation Christmas Child region.
Wow.
So, yes.
Nice to have you.
Thank you. Next
to Nhung is we have Robert and Barbara Henderson, which is they end up the distribution center, actually the collection center, I should say, in Grants Pass. Nice to have you, Robert and nice Barbara. And next to me here is Wayne and Terry Davis, and you are the Northwest Regional.
We're the Southern Oregon area team coordinators.
All right. Well, they're all here for some really fun things, and Nhung, this has been a remarkable year. It was just incredible the amount of participation this year. Give us a little update. What happened this year?
Well, in 2013, we also marked the 20th year that Operation Christmas Child has been in existence. And with that, we also celebrated the milestone of having delivered the 100th millionth shoebox gift to a child, to actually a little girl in the Dominican Republic. And Franklin Graham would be the first to tell you that in 1993, he had no vision for what the program would evolve to. In fact, it just came upon him by accident. So the fact that 20 years later, in 2013, we are celebrating 100th millionth child who heard the gospel, no one could have foreseen that. And we do recognize that God's hand was on it. His hand of favor was upon it each and every single year, just with the logistic challenges of how do you collect this many shoebox gifts? How do you then deliver it to last year over 100 countries? Wow. To that many children? Wow. So it was an incredible year. In 2013, we can probably say that this year we will be able to, because of the efforts of you all, the Hendersons, and our 7,500 year-round volunteers in the United States, we'll be sharing the gospel with almost 10 million children.
Isn't that something?
Because of the efforts of 2013.
That's just unbelievable.
Incredible.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Robert, nice to have you here. And you've been involved how long?
Since 1998.
98. And that kind of happened by accident.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Tell us what happened.
I had a gentleman named Bill Morgan. God had brought him out to work for us from Florida. I met him in Florida. Within a couple months, he wound up working for us. And he said, "Hey, can I do this thing called Operation Christmas, the shoebox ministry?"
Yeah.
And so I said, "Sounds good to me." So he got it started, collected several hundred shoeboxes. I think it was 200 or 300 shoeboxes that first year. Then he had a congestive heart failure and had to move back to be closer to his family in Florida. So I had a choice. This thing's going to die or I'm going to do something with it. So I said, I want to know the heart of the man behind this thing, if I'm going to be involved with it and commit our time to it. Well, I read the book Rebel with a Cause and Living Beyond Your Limits, and my heart was captured. I just wept when I heard those stories of these incredible shoeboxes in the ministry that was going on all around the world. And so I said, we can get behind it. And now it's just, time flies by, and before you know it, we've been doing it for a while now.
Well, that's great. Wayne and Terry, you folks have been a delight to work with, and it's so encouraging. How successful was this year's gathering?
This year was it was the most shoeboxes we've gathered ever.
Really? And
it was a 10% increase over last year, which was just amazing, abundant shoeboxes, really.
Approximately
we got a total of 15,496 shoeboxes in Southern Oregon.
Wow.
And it's just an awesome thing to be a part of. And, it's wonderful working with, relay centers like yours and Robert's and Barbara's. It just makes it so easy, really.
Well, just a remarkable story. Over 15,000 boxes.
Yes.
I remember when it was 600. Now it's 15,000.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
It really is something. Well, you have come today to make some special presentations, and we're delighted to that. And I'm going to let you kind of steal the show for a few moments and tell us what you're doing here.
Well, we have 2 plaques here and certificates that we want to present on behalf of Samaritan's Purse. And maybe I'll just read them. They're both the same, but I'll read what's written here. It says, presented to Henderson's lineup, Break and RV, and then the other one is COHO Radio and TV. In appreciation for 10 years of partnership with Operation Christmas Child as an official drop-off location, Franklin Graham Samaritan's Purse. And the verse that's listed here is Matthew 18:5, which says, "And whoever receives one such child in my name receives me."
Wow.
So we thank you for your participation. This is for the Hendersons. Thank you so much, Robert and Barbara. And Perry for KDove. We love you guys. And couldn't do it without you.
We are so honored to be a part of this, and I just don't know what the future is going to be. We're looking forward to the 20,000 mark. How's that? And when you look at the numbers and you look back over 10 years at the rate, that's doable, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, Young, what's in the future? Where are we heading with this project?
Well, I think the heart of it still goes back to what Franklin said in 1993 is we're going to be completely led by how God wants to use us this year. We have what we call these numbers and God-sized goals in mind, but the truth is God is going to do what He's going to do. And right now in the 100+ countries, we are currently distributing those almost 10 million shoeboxes that are collected. So on our international side, the prayers for our international ministry partners and volunteers who are truly often, as Stephen even saw in Ecuador, making the laborious trek 2 hours, 3 hours out to deliver these shoeboxes. So we would pray for their safety. We would pray for shoeboxes to make it through customs. That is actually a very challenging aspect in certain countries. So we're actively praying for our international partners there. And domestically here in the U.S. and our 8 other receiving countries, we start again at 0. And that is the humbling fact that we know. We can celebrate these tremendous numbers each year, but it's February and we have 0 shoeboxes, and so our prayer is that with the dedication and faithfulness of our current partners, we are going to do this again, and we are already praying for the children who are going to receive the shoeboxes gathered in 2014.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
You know, I have to tell you, you know, we had the incredible fortune of sending Steve Johnson down to Ecuador to be at one of the distribution centers. One of the most incredible moments is when he Skyped in from his phone and he was holding it by his hand out there, riding the bus, going to give the shoeboxes to the children. And I think he was set back by the fact that this is the first time some of those children ever received a present.
It's amazing.
And it's hard to believe that. And they were allowed into the public schools to do that.
Yeah.
And in there is the gospel. Isn't that something?
So awesome.
And there are so many countries where others would say it's closed to the gospel. But again, that's where we rely on the hand of favor of God to say He's allowing, for His purpose, these shoeboxes to make it into countries where it has been challenging before. And so we know it's not just a shoebox gift. There is this tangible love that we are presenting to a child to say, you are not forgotten. You are loved, and we are praying for you, and we are praying for your relationship with Jesus Christ. And the fact that Stephen was able to witness that, it's memorable. And so I appreciate that I was at the Denver Processing Center watching Stephen in Ecuador, and it was just that moment of, God, we thank you for the technology that allows us to have this common shared experience, because we know not everybody will get to hand the shoebox to the child, but through Steve, we were able to see that. So that was incredible.
Well, I want to say to our viewers and listeners, I actually received this, and I'm sure Robert and Barbara do this. We received this on behalf of all of you that packed the box.
Yes.
And the stories that we got, I'm sure you got some too, Robert, where the families would come in and the little children that went to such detail packing those boxes, praying over those boxes, coming in. The stories were just phenomenal. So thank you again, Young. Delighted to have you.
Thank you.
And Wayne and Terry, thank you for all that you do.
Thank
Bob,
you.
I consider partnering with you an honor. So we look forward to 2014. We got to push through 15,000. Let's get it up to about 18,000 next year. How's that?
At least, yeah.
All
That'd
right.
be wonderful.
Thank you all for coming in. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Well, what an honor to receive that recognition. We do that on behalf of all of you that have packed a box. All right, coming up next, well, one of the things we talked about earlier, we're going to talk about it again, and that is the brand new City Life project, ready to open for serving more kids. We'll talk about that coming up next.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, it's been a fun day today because earlier we broadcasted live from the new City Life Community Center in downtown Medford, where Hearts with a Mission and Rogue Valley Youth for Christ have come together in a collaboration to make sure that no child falls through the cracks. And I have with us right now Kevin Lamson. He heads up Hearts with a Mission. And first of all, congratulations, buddy.
Oh, thanks.
That building is gorgeous.
It is, in spite of me. It is gorgeous.
It is just, you know, I'm so happy because I had a little sneak preview. Went upstairs, you guys were still moving in your offices. And then downstairs, I think you were still laying carpet. But that's all done now. You're ready for opening, aren't you?
Yeah.
And how long is this taking?
Gosh, Bud and I started praying about it about two and a half years ago.
Yeah.
So to see it come to it's here.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's just amazing where your vision, what God's given you with Hearts with the Mission and homeless teens, and what Bud has been called to with the Youth for Christ and working on campus with kids and families. This is the collaboration to make sure that no kid falls through the cracks. And it enables you to do things in this center that you can't do in the other place, which is?
Yeah, kids can do their homework.
Yeah.
You know, we can have parenting classes, you know, and that's one of the things that we realized early on is that if you really want to help kids, you have to help their entire family.
Right, right.
So now we have the room to do it.
That's wonderful. Well, this, and the other part of this is that the two ministries now, your actual administrations are going to be housed at this center.
Yeah.
And so what kind of a savings is that?
We'll let you know. No, and You know, it's interesting as you want to work with each other, but you realize sometimes, you know, there's difficulties in working with each other because you do things differently. But, you know, we serve the same God, and it all has to do with our relationship with Him, and to see how He's working inside of staff, and as we're trying to blend that together, it's really been remarkable so far.
All right, so what's the vision for the City Life Community Center? It's a building next to Hearts with the Mission, brand new building. It's done. They're going to have their open house this weekend, and it's just beautiful. Offices upstairs, and student and youth training, entertainment, get together downstairs. What's your vision for this center?
Well, I think it's the same vision I had with Hearts with a Mission. You know, that it's gonna be a place where people can come live their faith in a practical way. And, you know, I think both Bud's and my goal is to be able to be a part of what God's doing in our community, where we can tell people that if you want to serve, if you really want to live your faith, here's the opportunity to come down to the City Life Community Center and look for ways that you can do that. And if that's just loving on kids, if that's being supportive of parents, whatever that is.
Do you need help? Do you need volunteers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just come down to the City Life and check it out, huh?
Yeah. One of the things that we've done with our administration is that our volunteer coordinator is going to be the volunteer coordinator for both organizations. So she'll have a good understanding of what both organizations do. She'll be able to do the same background checks and get all the paperwork done. So whoever wants to volunteer is ready to go, and whether you're helping, you know, kids that are staying at the shelter, or you're helping kids that are coming in on the City Life program in the community, you'll be there just to love on them.
All right, now tell us again how big the problem is with what you do with Hearts with the Mission, because now you're almost maxed out.
Yeah, it's amazing how you realize that the problems are much deeper, much more severe than you ever would imagine. You know, I think back 4 or 5 years ago when we were talking about creating a shelter, that you were thinking, well, let's just get them off the street, you know, because that's a dangerous place for kids to be. But then when you start seeing the abuse that comes along with it, and, you know, just the breakdown in family and the breakdown in relationships, and to be able to partner with Youth for Christ in that, I think that's the kind of the key of what God was bringing us together, is that it is that authentic relationship. You know, it's my relationship with God, and, you know, our relationship with each other, and then what that all looks like, you know, what that big story is.
So how is the problem still big on homeless kids?
Yeah, I think we're still over 2,000 kids in our community.
That are homeless.
That are homeless.
So they're couch hopping. They end up at your place.
Yeah, and I think, you know, part of it is that they're in a home, you know, but you know, their parents are addicted. You know, heroin is terrible in our community.
You know, you're the third person that's told me that there's been a resurgence of heroin, cheap heroin on the streets in Jackson County that's alarming.
Yeah, it is, and I don't think we really realize how it affects our kids. You know, because they're in and they don't want to be a part of it. But how do you get out of it? You know, if your parents are addicted, how do you get out of that? Where do you go? What do you do? A lot of times you know what you know, and it's scary. So, you know, for us to be able to go in to a community or go into schools and say, we'll be there, and we don't have all the answers, but we'll walk along beside you until we can figure it out.
So how many are you housing now? Because you've been maxed out several times, haven't you?
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to Bruce today, and I said, I think right now we have 10 kids over there, and that's kind of the perfect number, if you would. I mean, it's terrible to say that's a perfect number. It'd be great if it was 0. But when there's 10 kids, and with the support staff that we have, you're able to give the attention and be able to provide the support. But when you hit 16, you know, then it's kind of all hands on deck, and it's just kind of survival, and it wears you down. But what we're looking at is other communities now. You know, it'd be great to be able to replicate this in surrounding communities where everything isn't being funneled into Medford. You know, I know that you know, the farther you get out into rural areas, the tougher it is.
Yeah. How do teens find out about you? How do they come to the shelter?
A lot of times it's just word of mouth. Schools, school counselors. A lot of times they end up at the hospital because there's no place else to take them. Law enforcement does a really good job of identifying youth that are troubled need help. And, you know, in fact, we had a young lady that was picked up shoplifting, and rather than taking her to juvenile services, brought her to Hearts with a Mission.
Really?
You know, it's like, these people want to help you. You know, here's a place you can get the help and the support that you need. She ended up staying with us for almost 4 months, and she wasn't going to graduate from high school. Now she's on track to graduate, and she has a job, and, you know, she has the support, she has the family that, you know, she didn't have.
Do you get involved with parents?
All the time, when they'll let us.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, how do you enter that level of help?
Non-judgmental. You know, I think it needs to be from a position of love. You know, that we aren't here to take your kid. You know, we aren't here to get between you and your youth. What we're here is to love on you, to support you however we can. And we know there's always two sides to every story, and there's a story behind where they're at. And to be able just to say, we want to help, let us help you. And once I think parents get through that piece, that they didn't do anything wrong or whatever, and they're not feeling the blame, then they start looking for ways.
You know, Kevin, part of that is what you brought City Life into fruition for, and that's the City Life Community Center, the new building. By the way, they're going to be doing the open house this weekend. We'll get into that in just a moment. But you're discovering that the reason that a youth is separated from the family and maybe homeless is the parents don't know how to be a parent.
Yeah.
And as sad as that may be, but they actually need to help on how to become a good parent.
Yeah, and I wish I would have known what I know now when I was, you know, my kids were younger.
Yeah, well, kids don't come with instructions.
That manual doesn't work as well as it should.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's just saying sometimes that you just got to hang in there. You know, the biggest encouragement sometimes I do to parents is just say, let them know you love them, regardless. You don't have to support the action. You know, and there's consequences for actions. But the one thing that we can't tell our kids is that, you know, you're in a position now that I don't love you anymore. Because when you do that, you know, it destroys the foundation really of what God started inside of us early on when He created us. So they want to be loved. And out of that, you're able to, you know, work with them to try to find common ground. And having therapists and counselors that are willing, you know, to walk along beside them. And one of the things that we're looking forward to with our collaboration and getting volunteers is one way to live your faith is coming to a parent meeting if you were a parent. And that doesn't mean you have the answers. What it means is I'll sit along beside you and support you and be with you as you're trying to learn maybe some tools or different tricks of the trade.
We're starting to hear the stories now since you've been open these, how many years now?
It was 4 years in December.
Okay, it's hard to believe that. Wow. And now with the City Life Community Center next door. But we're hearing the stories of the youth coming back saying, here's what you guys meant to me. Here's what happened. Share with us maybe one or two.
It's incredible. You know, it's, I think what you end up realizing is how much of an impact God did through you. One of our case managers was playing a recording of a youth that he's living in California now, and he got a small inheritance. He bought a trailer, and he has a job. And in his voicemail, he's just saying, you know, he said, you guys were more of a family to me, he said, than I've ever had. He said, I knew you loved me. And he said, you guys were right on so many things. And he said, I just wanted to let you know, he said, you made such a huge difference in my life. He said, you need to keep doing what you're doing. He said, you're really helping kids.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, and I had an interesting thing happen. I was doing a presentation at one of the local retirement facilities, and I had a youth with me, and she got up right after I got up, shared her story, which is horrific. But at the end, she said, you know, I resent the fact every time Kevin says Hearts with a Mission Youth Shelter. She goes, it's not a shelter, it's a home. And it's my home.
Wow.
And I thought, all right,
okay,
you know, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because that was the vision, you know, to not create something clinical or something sterile, but to create an environment that can be a home for these kids when their own home isn't.
Where does the gospel come in? And I realize because of your licensing, you have some restrictions, but now the City Life Community Center next door has no restrictions.
No, and I don't think a lot will change. I think what ends up happening is that people want to know why you do what you do. And, you know, I can't leave God out of that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for God.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes impactful in the fact that even some of your people that might even be atheists, one of our strongest supporters is somebody that doesn't even believe in God. And it was through the explanation of, well, why do you do what you do? Well, because I want to pattern my life over the person that I believe in, and that's Jesus Christ. And I should believe that my life would resemble a portion of who he is. And that's what we tried to do because of what he did through, you know, for me. And as you explain it, people kind of look at you and go, oh, well, is that all you're doing? And it's like, well, that's the gospel. You know, it's as simple as that. And we have seen kids, you know, talking with staff, a lot of times with parents or with kids, you know, we'll say, hey, can we pray with you? Yeah, would you do that?
Yeah.
And as you pray with them, you see their heart, you know, starting to get softened. And we had a group meeting with all the kids, and it was kind of a rotten thing that we were talking about, but it was kind of like staff didn't feel what they were doing was right. We didn't feel the kids were doing anything right. And it was just kind of an impromptu at the end of this meeting, these kids started sharing. I never believed in God before I came here. And I mean, it wasn't like that wasn't the topic of conversation. Yet they're sharing with 10 or 12 other kids. You know, when I came here, I really discovered who God really was through looking at the lives of the people that were living it.
Wow.
And I'm going, wow.
That's it.
Yeah. Thanks, Lord. You know, you're still working even when we think that you're, you know, we're not. So.
All right, we'll take a quick break, but I just want to let you know that the community, the City Life Community Center will be opening officially this weekend. Open house. When's the open house? Saturday from when to when?
From 9 to noon.
All right, and I encourage you to check it out. The location, for those who don't know?
It's 529 Edwards.
Okay, and it's right next door, Hearts with a Mission, right across the street from Youth Unlimited, and or Kids Unlimited, excuse me, and you can't miss it. Beautiful, brand new building, and it's just absolutely an instrument to be used to win more kids to Christ. So we'll talk more about it when we come back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
All right, well, we're back, and we've added to the mix here the other half of the equation, and that is our good friend Bud Amundsen's with us today, and he is the guy that heads up with the Rogue Valley Youth for Christ. Been around. How long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been with Youth for Christ over 22 years.
22 years.
Been executive director for 4.5, something
Good
like
for
that.
you. Well, again, I want to just commend these two gentlemen for their vision to make sure that no child falls through the cracks. And they got together, they had lunch one day, and I think they're setting a precedence for a lot of parachurch ministries to come together and say, hey, wait a minute, how can we collaborate? How we can maybe save on resources and energy and everything else and coordinate things. And I've had the honor to be in a few of those discussions, but today is a special day as they are now celebrating a physical reality of a dream, and that is the opening of the City Life Community Center, CLCC.
There you go.
There you go, CLCC. And this is where Hearts with a Mission and Rogue Valley Youth for Christ come together. Well, Bud, this is a big day, big vision, you know. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a little surreal, you know. For 2 years, you're thinking about this thing, and, you know, sometimes you're wondering if it's going to come together, and then all of a sudden you're standing in it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, and you know, it's just the fact that you know, it wasn't Hearts with a Mission or Youth for Christ that built this thing. It was the community.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you look around and it's like, oh, that came from there, and you know, in different places. And,
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Well, you know, on that point, I just want to say to everybody that got involved with this, and there's many of you who donated time, material, and a lot of you got involved with just helping with finances. Coming over and doing cleanup. I mean, I get it. Believe me, I get it. And these guys, I just want to say thank you to all of you that made this a reality. This is a testimony of God's work in this community and the furtherance of these two ministries.
Absolutely.
So, Bud, what's your vision for City Life?
Well, you know, City Life kind of has two facets. You know, City Life Community Center, it's where Hearts with Mission, Youth for Christ, you know, come together. Our administrative offices are there, and then there's rec space and homework space and all that for Hearts with a Mission. And then we've got what we call our club space or club room. And City Life is a ministry similar to Campus Life, but it's neighborhood focused. And so instead of being involved strictly at a campus, at a school, this is where we really open the doors and go interact with kids in the neighborhood, and not just high school kids, not just junior high, but elementary, really through high school. And you know, the community that we're in there, where Hearts with Mission has been, it's a community with tons of kids, and most of those kids are coming from significantly challenging backgrounds. You know, their families are hurting, struggling, falling apart, and you know, they're dealing with poverty, and they're dealing with a lot of relational issues, and then we talk about relational poverty, which, as you guys were talking about before, you know, the most common situation we see is where you know, it's a single parent home, and that parent is usually addicted to alcohol, drugs, something. And so, you know, what chance does the kid have growing up? I mean, do you remember that real cold snap? You know, we were just kind of getting moved into the area, and driving through the neighborhood, and you know, 3 kids sitting on the curb outside a rundown little house, you know, banging a stick on the ground, and was, you know, like 3 degrees or something like that in the evening. And you know, I know the situation there with work we do with the kids. It's something's going on inside the house that
they're outside,
that they're not allowed to be a part of, and they shouldn't be a part of, and is illegal or whatever. And so they're put out on the front curb no matter what the weather. And so our goal is to, you know, provide a safe, warm place where, you know, not only is the kid able to come in and experience something great in terms of, you know, fun and games and all that, but it's where somebody's going to connect with them and show them the love that they need. You
know, the other thing that was so interesting is that you guys both discovered that there was a good chance you were ministering to the same kid. You were getting him on campus, you were getting him at home being homeless, and that's kind of what provoked this, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, as we sat and chatted about both organizations, it really became clear, you know, the vision of Hearts with a Mission and the vision of Youth for Christ in so many of these kids, because we're working with the least and the lost. You know, both organizations, you know, meet very cleanly in the life of a kid. I probably shouldn't say cleanly. It's never really clean, is it? But even in the mess of life on life ministry, you know, we found out that a lot of the kids we're working with in the youth centers, you know, for one reason or another, end up at the shelter. We connect mentors with the kids that come to the shelter. And so really, both organizations are right there providing that necessary support.
How big is the need inner city-wise? Because it's no accident that God put you guys where you are. I mean, I remember when you looked at that house, and you're going to do what with this place? And it completely remodeled, then you build the new building, but it is strategically located in inner city life.
Yeah,
you know? Well,
and there's plenty of kids that no matter what day it is, school day or not, that, you know, are hanging around, and they don't have, again, the family structure maybe to get them to school when they need to be, and all that. And so we're right there.
What are your needs? What do you need? I mean, you need
people,
volunteers,
you know,
mentors.
Yeah. Here's the deal. There is an open door into this community and really our culture through the relational needs of these kids.
Right.
they're dying for somebody to show them love and care. And when you do, as Kevin was talking about earlier, you know, it's just life on life. I mean, we talk about it at Youth for Christ in the terms of 3 story. I learn their story. I just go hang out with them. Somewhere their story resonates with something I've experienced, and then I share my story. And somewhere in the middle of that, my story is impacted by God, and so God's story comes very easily and cleanly into that connection. And honestly, there's an open door for the church to engage this community and this culture through this next generation that are dying for relationships, somebody to be there for them.
All right, so what I'm hearing you say, and we've talked about it on several occasions, mentors. Now, look, you may say, what could God use me for? I've always said, whatever God saves you from brings you through, he turns you around, makes you a minister too. And so I don't know how many of you got a background, and if you've been redeemed from that, here's a place. This is where story on story gets connected.
Yeah, you know, and God calls us to be witnesses, right?
Yeah.
And what do witnesses do?
Yeah.
They simply tell what they know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, hanging out with a kid, and it's a little daunting, I think, because
but you train them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You show them the ins and outs on how to do
we
this.
do that training. But it's simple when you really just want to show them love and care and compassion, and then your lives interact, and that's where you know, there's just this easy opportunity to share what God has done, and so you don't have to tell them what you don't know. Mm-hmm. You just, if you have an authentic relationship with Jesus Christ,
that works.
You know enough to tell somebody else about it.
Well, that's the simplicity of it. So I want to encourage you, if you've been thinking, if you're looking for a place to serve, and you want to get out of your comfort zone, and you want to impact their life, come on down. Let Bud and Kevin. They'll train you. They'll give you. They'll show you how to handle this and what to do in the various situations. And now you got an incredible facility to work in. It's just remarkable what God has done there. All right, before we run out of time, this weekend's your open house, right?
Yep.
9 to noon, did you say, Kevin?
9 to noon, yeah. We have a superhero fun run, though, starting at 8:30 that dress up as your superhero. It's called Hearts and Heroes.
I've seen they advertise.
So if you
I'm
don't
supposed to come as Superman or somebody?
Absolutely, you look great. But no, you can just bring your heart. If you want to just bring your heart without the hero outfit, that's what makes you a hero, is by having that serving heart. And it's just a way to kind of kick off. It's just a 1-mile walk run around the neighborhood, give you a good chance to pray for everybody in the neighborhood.
That's wonderful. And that starts at 8:30.
8:30, and then the open house will begin at 9, and tour the building and see what God built.
Yeah, and our good buddy Don Hildebrand,
No kidding.
executive director from Youth for Christ in the past, is going to do a little keynote
Good for him.
speech.
I always told him to write a book, Pimples and Wrinkles, because he went from YFC up to the Manor.
The Manor, yeah.
I said, "Go. You need to write a book from Pimples to Wrinkles."
Yeah,
you know,
he should, and I'm sure he's got the stories to.
Yeah, he's probably got the stories.
Make that good.
Well, that is wonderful. Well, congratulations, you guys, and I just want to again commend you for holding your ministries with an open hand. Say, God, what do you want to do? Because so often, when people grip their ministries, it becomes theirs and not God's. Mm-hmm. And you guys have held it with open hands, and God did this. And I think it's just wonderful. Who knows what the future holds, where you're going to go with having the City Life Community Center now a reality. It's there. And again, to all of you who got involved in this project, I don't know how many, hundreds, I guess.
Hundreds. Yeah. I mean, hundreds. Whether it was volunteers coming down on Saturday mornings to sweep and clean and bang nails, and or all the folks that gave in-kind donations, or the financial supporters.
The window-thon.
Yeah. Oh, the window-thon.
Come see your window that you helped put in. It's there.
I'll bring my Sharpie down and write on it. No, not that.
There you go.
Well, anyway, congratulations to both of you. I can't wait till just see what God's going to do with this, and many times in the future when you guys come in sharing the stories on how God has now used this. The building's not the end all, it's just a tool.
It's the beginning.
It's the beginning.
It's the ministry that, you know, that's where the real work is. So.
Well, congratulations. 9 to noon, Saturday there on Edward Street with the Community Life, or the City Life Community Center, CLCC. And if you are a runner or a walker, dress up as your hero, Superman, I don't know, Annie Oakley, whatever.
Underdog.
Underdog, whatever. And be there at 8:30 for the fun run and walk. Thanks, guys.
All right.
God bless you. We'll see you next time on
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.